Hi, everybody. Can you hear me, or am I too loud?
You're plenty loud.
Plenty loud. Maybe I'll go over here. Is that better? Go ahead.
Hi, everyone.
Got an echo going.
I know. He'll take care of that.
Are you adjusting that a little bit? They're a little bit loud. If you could turn that down, Chief.
Perfect. So a little bit, something funny about our last name. When I was in high school on our football team, the head coach, when I transferred into my junior year, asked me how I said my last name. And one of the things I used to do is a little rhyme to get people to say my name, because it's German, and so a lot of people say mine or Meine or whatever, and it's actually Meine, so I would say eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And so the football coach for the rest of those 2 years called me Mo instead of Meine. So anyway, you can remember our last name that way.
Who's going to take this slide? This is exactly why we don't do this together. I'm not kidding. I was telling Stephen before, this is the very first time David and I have ever spoke together. We do lots of speaking in lots of colleges around the valley, and usually they ask for one or the other of us. And so we have a very different approach to speaking assignments. For one, I like to have mine done way early, and I practice what I'm going to say. David is more on the fly. And on the fly, this afternoon, we went through this real quickly, and he said, I'll take this slide. Gosh, it's okay.
Hold on, let's get the audio straight.
Sorry.
Do we have two mics as well?
No.
There's just some real bad feedback. Maybe we need to turn this on.
So this is exactly why, because he said, I'll take this slide, and just now he said, this is your slide. So.
Sorry.
You're going to remember us for that, if nothing else. So.
This has never done this before. We'll just take that off. Okay, we'll just turn it off right here.
Okay. So the reason we started with this slide was because we thought this would be a unique way to start a presentation. Something very different, and obviously something we can only do at BYU. We've started some businesses together, and we're going to talk about those later on. But the center of who we are as a couple is with Christ in our marriage. And he's also been a part of our businesses. It's a fascinating thing when you start, run, and create a business and eventually sell a business, which we'll talk about later on of what we've done, when you make Christ a part of it. There are many times in our careers where we thought we were going one direction, and inspiration and thoughts and ideas and experiences at the temple have taken us in a completely different direction, and we've had successes that are pretty incredible. So we wanted to start this presentation and talk about how important in our marriage and in our running of businesses that our relationship with Jesus Christ is.
And I think that's, for us, is really critical. One of the things that you'll learn, how many in here are married? Okay? And of the ones that are married, how many are you thinking that you might want to do your own business someday? Okay? If you're going to be successful in business, it will really depend on your relationship with your spouse. And so for us, the thing that I know at the end of every day is that I know my wife's core values. I know that I can trust her. I know that she has integrity. And something that we've done in our marriage is that every single night we end, if we can at all, we read a chapter in the Book of Mormon, and or we've been going through David, DNC, there's a writer here at BYU, and then we end our day every night with a word of prayer. And I just wanted to share one thing on and add to what Carla was saying in our business career. A company that we just sold, the executive team, which there were 7 of us, we started every one of our executive meetings with a word of prayer. Now, by a show of hands, how many in here think that that's a common practice in the business world today? Okay, not one hand, it isn't. And one of the things that we had to do that made that unique is we actually had each one of the executive team sign a document that they agreed that it was okay to have a word of prayer. Now, why would we need to do that in today's business world? Somebody raise a hand, want to make a comment on that?
Someone could get offended.
Right, and or say that they don't believe in prayer and that we took away their right. So in essence, we said if every single person in here doesn't agree, then we wouldn't start with the word of prayer. Okay? And so things are unique in that. And so one of the things that my wife and I have worked and have strived to do is to limit negative interactions. So one of the things in marriage that you'll find is that if there's a really good book called He Said, She Said. How many in here have read that book? Nobody? Fantastic book that Carla and I read together. And one of the things it talks about is a bank account. Bank account is that every time you have a positive interaction, you're making a deposit, right? And every time you have a negative interaction, you're withdrawing. And so if you're in business together and you're married, what do you think the potential is for negative interactions? How many, by a raise of hand, thinks that you would think that if you're doing business together, you're both reds, which means you're driven, you want to be successful, you have your talents. What do you think the potential is? How many, by a raise of hands, would think that negative interactions would be high? Okay? They are. Because Carla just started off by saying that I have a style when I speak, and I speak nationally. She has a style when she speaks, and we're completely different, but both of our styles work. So how do we create, instead of having negative interactions as entrepreneurs and husband and wife and as best friends, that book, what it talks about, He Said, She Said, is that you've got to have, for every negative interaction, you've got to have 10 positive interactions. It doesn't take very long to take a bank account where you've saved up all these positive interactions and you start having negative interactions for that account to go zero and go negative, and you start going negative, then your marriage could be potentially in trouble. And so that's why we wanted to share our story, is that we've had to work very hard at trying to have those positive interactions. So by ending our day with scriptures and ending our day with prayer, that's positive interactions, positive things that happen to help keep our marriage strong.
So what we thought would be kind of interesting is to talk about the different ways that we went about becoming entrepreneurs. So we kind of listed on one side mine and David's on his side. So I'll talk about mine. I went the corporate route first. So I got out of college. I graduated from BYU, Idaho with a business degree, went right into managing restaurants. So that was my passion. I really enjoyed the food business. So I started 7 years with Sea Galley Restaurant Company, went on to work as a regional manager for Mrs. Fields Cookies, and then got stolen away from Mrs. Fields by Morris Air, so went into the airline business. Very similar business, but different. I also own a farm, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But so I took the corporate route And then I started a company called Occurrence Teleservices in 1994. And I just wanted to speak to something that Stephen brought up about entrepreneurship. So it's a telemarketing company. So I did kind of like the cement cutting business. Nobody wants to be in the telemarketing business, okay? It's not a business you go, oh, when I grow up, I want to be in the telemarketing business. That would be so great. It was a company that came about because I was trying to solve a problem with Morris Herrick, and I developed home agents. That was in 1993 when there was no such thing as home agents. And so my passion was getting people to work from home. And so I became an expert at hiring and training and supervising and managing home agents. And that was my passion, not telemarketing. So you do need to find something that nobody else is willing to do. And what's interesting, and why I speak to this topic a little bit differently than most, is I don't know too many men that would have done what I did with Occurrence Teleservices. It really was a woman-motivated thing. I wanted to create a business where thousands and thousands of women could work from home, making good money, and support their families and not have to leave the home. So it really came out of that desire to solve a big problem I saw with women having to work out of the home.
So 1978, came to BYU. Back then was awesome because when I came off my mission, I served a mission in London, England, and I had a grade point average of 2.95, and BYU took me. How many in here got into BYU with less than a 4.0? Oh, just a few. So it was funny because I had no intentions of I had never thought about going to BYU. I'm a convert to the church, grew up as a Lutheran in Colorado, and joined the church, ended up going on a mission, and while I was out in the mission, I started hearing more about BYU, and some of my friends were going to BYU. I was going to go to Colorado University, because I grew up in Colorado, CU, and wanted to be a Buffalo. Never thought about being a Cougar. And so I ended up here in 1978. In 1979, I was working for a company called Stokes Brothers. And while I was working for Stokes Brothers, they were an electronics company. I found some things that they were doing wrong, and some things that they weren't doing a very good job, I thought, as far as customer service. So I started my very first company while I was going to BYU called Sounds Easy. Got $3,000 loaned to me, and went out and bought some microwaves, some small refrigerators, and a couple of VCRs back then, and rented to BYU students out of the garage. Created a little flyer, had a little animation on it, went and put flyers on door to door, and rented all the equipment out in a week. And what was interesting is one of the guys that worked with me took the flyer up to Salt Lake to the owner. I was managing the 2 stores down here. Took the flyer, gave it to Steve Stokes. Steve Stokes called me in. I thought I was going to get a promotion while I was going to school, and Steve came in and turned the flyer and put it in front of me. And I looked at it, I looked at him, and he said, "You're fired." And so now I had no job, going to school, and said, you know what, I got to support and get things going. So went and got another loan and just went full gun in 1979. And so within 3 years I had Sounds Easy International. I went down the franchising route. Horrible experience. And had 102 stores in 28 states. Had a great experience. In 1988 I sold that, and then went corporate route for a little while, and then came back and started a company called Secure Utah, Secure USA, did home security systems. So one of the things that I saw was that all these people had homes they wanted secure, but they couldn't hardwire them. So I went and researched and found a company called First Alert, and they were the first company that did wireless security systems. And so I went and became an expert at doing security systems in homes that were already, you know, they had the basements finished, everything was done. There's no way to get wires to the windows, wires to the doors. See, today it's just, no, that's how systems are done, but back then it was a big deal. And so I figured out how to do that, got several thousand accounts, and what I was looking for was that monthly fee, because I went from retail stores and I wanted to have a business that had annuity. So ended up doing Secure USA, and then had a lot of success at that, sold that, and then in 2001, Carla was doing Occurrence Teleservices and was doing really well at it, and we decided to come together and do our very first business together. And I'm going to let her speak a little bit to that, and then we'll talk about our next project.
So like I said, I started this company because Morris Air sold to Southwest Airlines, and there was no place. I was the vice president of operations for Morris Air, so there was no place for me in that cell. But I had this concept I had done at Morris Air that I decided I've got to take this concept and I've got to build my own business. So that's when I started Occurrence Teleservices. David and I met in 2001, and I convinced David in 2002 to come work with me. I saw very quickly that we had very complementary talents. David's expertise at sales and marketing and technology was a great complement to my operations and finance background. So together we built Occurrence Teleservice to a stage where we had over 600 employees, and we sold that in 2007. In the meantime, while we were building Occurrence, and this is why Stephen talked about us being serial entrepreneurs, because serial entrepreneurs just are always thinking of ideas and what can we do next. And so in 2004, I think it was, we got the idea. So I'm going to let him talk about how we came up with the idea for Ideal Shape.
So in 2001, when Carla and I started talking about Occurrence, she wanted to sell Occurrence. So she had been doing it since 1994, had just gone through 9/11. And so I happened to actually be in New York and watch the towers go down, and was meeting a customer there. I was with Quest Communications, so I'd gone back to the corporate route after I'd done that, Secure Utah and Secure USA. And so I was there experiencing that. I was with the big Quest multi-billion-dollar company. Carla and her company, for her, everything was coming in inbound calls, so infomercials, TV spots, radio spots. What do you guys think happened to her business the day the towers went down? Somebody raise your hand and tell me what you think happened to Occurrence Teleservices. Go ahead.
The bandwidth may have been fully compromised because everyone's trying to call or...
No, phones went dead, right? Because the news for 24 hours a day the first week was everything was about the bombing, right? Towers going down, the Pentagon getting hit. So no advertisement was getting done. No radio spots, no TV spots, no infomercials. So her business completely stopped. And then a week after, 2 weeks after, none of the advertisers wanted to advertise because they felt that that was disrespectful to what just happened to our country. So Carla and I were talking, and she's like, she didn't want, this is the difference between the two of us. She was invested in all those employees at Occurrence. And so she did not stop paying all those employees. She kept paying them all, went and borrowed more money to keep it going, and the investor said, you need to, sell the business. So when Carla and I got talking about Occurrence, we looked at the problem that she had, right? No cash flow, no calls coming in. How long was it before things got back to normal for occurrence?
Couple months.
A couple months. And so Carla's there trying to solve these problems, trying to figure out how to keep these employees so that when all of her clients could start advertising again that would make the phones ring, right? So we got talking, and I told her, I said, I don't think you ought to sell this company. You have spent, since 1994 to 2001, you've built a great foundation. At that point, she was doing several $1 million in revenue. And I just said, you've done all the hard work. Has anybody in here had an opportunity to do a startup yet? Start a business in startup phase? Okay, the gentleman with the black hat, tell me, how hard is a startup?
It's really hard until you get about 50,000 in revenue. Then it gets a lot easier.
Okay, there you go. 50,000 in revenue. You must have a really tiny nut to break, that $50,000. And so once you break that nut, it gets easier and easier, right? Well, you got to remember, she's going at 2 million. All of a sudden, bam, no revenue, and she has me saying, "Hey, don't sell this company." And so that's when she said, "Well, what would it take?" And I said, "You just need marketing. You just need technology," which is not her passion at all. Right? I can sit on a technical call for 8 hours and solve a technical problem, and it doesn't bug me. She gets on a technical call, and she's just like, after 15 minutes, I've had it. Whereas dealing with employees' problems, dealing with the HR, dealing with the operations, I'm done in 2 seconds, and she'll spend hours and hours, and she does such a fantastic job at that. Okay? And that's where we talk about our talents. And so with the Currents, she said, "Would you come?" I said, "Okay, my responsibility when I joined in 2001, when I actually came on board in 2002, my responsibility was to grow the company, my specialty, technology, marketing, and so in 2007 we had an amazing harvest. During that time, one of the problems that I saw, go ahead. Oh, thank you. And I don't know what harvest means. I just hear that all the time. It meant in 2007 we sold the business to a private equity company, and they bought the company and they kept it going. Perfect. And some entrepreneurs call that a harvest because you planted, you spent all these years, you built the company, and the harvest is you sell it and then take your money and go do something else. Okay? So we harvested in 2007, but in 2002, one of my frustrations at being in sales and marketing, and also as the VP of technology, was that up to that point, Carla had 900 contracts since 1994. These are companies that said, I've got an idea, I've got a product, and I'm going to put it on TV, or I'm going to put it on the radio, or I'm going to run magazine ads, or I'm going to run TV ads, newspaper ads, and then you take the calls and you convert them into sales. Right? And so our business was going up and down every single month, and I said to Carla, we need to find a project that we can do, that we have control, and as you can tell, I'm out of what's called consumer products. That's my specialty, is consumer products, right? I've done videos, I had pizza in my stores, I've done security, everything I've done in my career has been consumer, and then the technology that goes with it. Carla's been the other side, the human resource side, and that part of it. So we get in 2002. So the problem I'm trying to solve is something consistent that will generate us a lot of revenue to keep all these people that we've hired. Make a long story short, a lot of the things that she took were fitness. A lot of nutritional products. She had Body by Jake. Of course, some of the other companies that you had were out of the fitness industry.
Can't remember.
Okay, what's the one with all the bands and
Bowflex.
Bowflex. She had a lot of amazing accounts. I mean, these are all brand names that she was taking calls. And so I said, let's come up with our own product. Well, I had a foster dad, took me in when I was 16 years old, He was 6'6" and 430 pounds. And the way that my foster dad used to weigh himself is he used to go get on a scale at a truck stop. So seriously, that he knew a guy, and he'd go over when there's no trucks coming onto it, he'd go stand on it, and the guy would tell him, because back in that day they didn't have, they just had the medical scales that if you put the little bar, you stood on it, it has the little sliding thing on it. Well, maybe you guys don't know those, because now your age, it's just you stand on something and it gives you a digital readout. To make a long story short, my dad, his whole life was obese and miserable, and he was at a point at 67 years old that he just couldn't walk hardly at all. And so the two of us said, how can we help my dad? Because we were out there in Colorado with him, sitting on the back porch. Every conversation went back to his weight. And so he made a really interesting comment to us. My dad said, over my lifetime, I bet you I've gained and lost 1,000 pounds. Carla and I looked at each other, and Carla said, we gotta help Dad. We gotta figure out if we can change his life. And so we got experts together that we both knew. We got nutritional, so we came up with several nutritional supplements. One of the things I had followed was a weight loss smoothie, the company that was doing that. We had a couple we knew that was really good with brain, really good with changing behavior, got an exercise guru. And so what we did is we brought all of those together, came up with our own program, went on the internet, and found Ideal Shape, and we bought that for $2,400. And we thought back in 2002, 2003, we thought, this is crazy how much money we're spending to get this website. But we wanted, it was just kind of when the whole internet business thing was starting to take off, and so we went and paid $2,400 for it, got that secured, got a corporation, got everybody together, did our very first retreat, and what was amazing for us, problem that we solved for my dad, is in 18 months, we helped my dad lose 150 pounds. So we got him down to 280 pounds. Completely changed his life, changed his health. And so we got that whole thing, we spent $75,000, and then our CFO came to us from Occurrence and said, guys, you're putting way too much time into Ideal Shape, and the company's starting to suffer. You got to make a decision. And what did we decide to do?
Scrap Ideal Shape.
We scrapped Ideal Shape in 2003. But we helped my dad. We did something we were passionate about, and that is we came up with a solution for my dad. We thought we could turn it into a business. It didn't work out. So we had a son going to school here in 2006, graduating in exercise science, right? So he's not in business at all, was in exercise science, and so as a graduation present, we gave him Ideal Shape. Gave him the website, gave him the corporation, had some cash in the account, and we said, here you go. So he spent 3 years, and in the 3 years he built a fitness company where he'd go out to people's home and he would do your training for you. And we loved it because he came and trained us twice a week, and we had an amazing 3 years. And so then we got to the point of what we'd like to talk about and end with our last 10 minutes is kind of talk about why.
We feel like it's really important for you, if you're considering building your own business, is you have to figure out your why. For me, in building Occurrence, like I said earlier, my why became I wanted to help build a business where mostly women, but even men, could work from home and make a good living, working maybe 20, 30, 40 hours a week if they wanted to, taking inbound calls and selling products, and be able to support their family and actually be there for their family. So that became my why. So when things got really tough, when things got really hard, and like other entrepreneurs you've heard of from, when you have to really gut it out, and it is hard work, and it's really tough to decide to stay in business. I would have somebody come up to me and say, thank you, Carla, for building this business. You have changed my life. You made it possible for me to stay home with my kids and make a good living and work in the middle of the night because my kids are asleep, or while they're in school, or when I can have a person there to watch them while I'm still there, or when they're sick and I'm able to still continue to work. So I would get those comments, and about the time I was ready to quit, about the time I was ready to say, throw in the towel, this is way too hard. So some people call it passion. David and I really call it discovering your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? What is the reason that you're doing it? And make sure it's something you believe in and you live in every single day, because that's the thing that will take you to the next level and make you go around that next corner when you really feel like giving up.
What do you think the number one job is for a CEO? Anybody in here, by raising hand, anybody want to be a CEO of a company someday? Okay. So what's your passion? What industry do you think you want to be a CEO in?
Management consulting.
Okay, management consulting. Who else would put their hand up wants to be a CEO? Let me see you. Yes, what are you going to be? What industry?
International healthcare.
Okay, international healthcare. Any other CEOs in here? Okay, sir.
I wouldn't mind airlines.
You want to manage airlines? You want to be like David Nealman? Do you know who he is?
Yeah.
JetBlue, and now Brazilian Air. Carla worked for him. She was the VP of operations. You knew that?
Yeah, I worked at JetBlue last summer.
You did. Awesome. Okay, one more person. Who else put your hand up high. You should be proud that you want to be a CEO someday.
You got one in the back, David.
Where?
Very back.
Thank you.
CEO of like probably a tech company.
Tech company? That's awesome. When you get to the point that you're the CEO of a company, what do you think your number one job is as the CEO? Okay, you four people that put your hands up. Well, she ran out on me. I scared her. But the other three, what do you think your job is going to be, number one job will be as a CEO?
I think it's basically identifying the vision and the future strategy of the company, whether like where you're going to have your unique value and how you're going to deliver on that, especially in a competitive market.
Okay. How many here have read a book by Simon Sinek called Start With Why? By raising hand. Okay.
I haven't read the book, but I saw a video on it.
You saw the TED Talk, right?
Yes.
Okay, let me tell you something. Between now and tonight, by midnight, 11:59, get on YouTube, pull up TED Talk, Simon Sinek, and watch Start With Why. Because you need to understand that for what you're doing with your degree, whatever space you're going into, if you don't know your why, you will not be as successful as you can be in your career. Flat out, guaranteed. If you want to change your life, if you want to make a difference, go watch this video and find out what it means to start with why. We put up here, we've got 5 minutes left, and I'm going to give you a quick overview. As the CEO, how many in here, not even CEO, how many in here want to be a manager in whatever business, whatever thing you're going to do? Raise of hands, how many want to be a manager of some type someday? Okay? How many in here want to manage a family? Have kids and a wife or a husband? Okay? You have to understand why. When I got to be really successful as a CEO, I've been a CEO several times. Carla's been a CEO several times. When I was able to get the whole company to understand what our why was, right? There's three things in the golden circle. A lot of companies and a lot of people can tell you what they do, right? Ideal shape. What we do is help people get healthy. Number two, some people can tell you how they do that. Very, very few can say why Ideal Shape does what it does. Why Occurrence does what it does. And it gets down to between 6 and 8 words. We spent 6 months as an executive team figuring out what our why was. And as the CEO, my job then became with the employees, our vendors, which is manufacturing, advertising, all the things that go to make a business, internet providers, get them to know what our why was, and then our customers, get them to understand what our why was. So, after 6 months, Occurrence, Carla and I came up with our why. And our why was, our passion is to transform and improve lives.
For Ideal Shape.
For Ideal Shape, thank you.
Occurrence.
This is why we make a great team. For Ideal Shape. Where did that start? Can anybody remember where Ideal Shape started from?
Right after Dad.
Yeah. Do you think we transformed and improved my dad's life?
Oh, yeah.
To go from 430 pounds down to 280 pounds? Okay, we've helped Ideal Shape since 2002 to now. We just sold the company to an international company. So we'll do $60 million in revenue this year. And we sold it to the Hutt Group out of England, Manchester, England, who's a $770 million company funded by BlackRock, KKR, which are big private equities that give equity. They bought us. And the reason they bought us, one of the reasons, main reasons they bought us, is because of our why. Because our passion is to transform and improve lives. And when I got all the employees to believe that, I got all of our manufacturers that were making our meal replacement shakes, our protein shakes for women. And then we got all of the women, which our customer market is 25 to 45-year-old women. We had Ideal Shape, Ideal Fit, performance supplements. We had all these websites because we were 100%, we did business on the internet, because I wanted to figure out how we could be a $60 million company with only 100 employees. We were a $20 million company at Occurrence, and it was 700 employees. We had to hire 1,000 employees a year to keep 700 people on the phones and all the things that we did. So at the end of the day, the reason I'm encouraging you to go listen to TED Talk, go buy the book, go really get to understand this concept, you will improve what you're doing at BYU in your classes, because you need to understand, what's my why of getting this degree? What's my why for whatever company I either work for or I create? I just did this at UVU. By a raise of hands, there wasn't one student that was working for a company that knew what the company's why was. And I had a great big line afterwards, and every one of them said, how do I get my company to figure out their why? Because as soon as we figured out our why, we went from $8 million to $20 million in revenue. And what was really cool, we now are helping hundreds of thousands of people transform and improve their lives. This year we're finishing at $60 million in revenue, and we've helped hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people transform and improve their lives. Thank you, our time's up.